Traveling by plane may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it sure gives you a bigger and better view of all the incredible things happening on the ground. People on flights have reported seeing a lot of extraordinary things, including breathtaking natural scenery. Air travel provides you with an opportunity to view the world from a different perspective. Some passengers take initiative and use their cameras to capture some unique sights that were missed by most people. Number 1. Debris drop. When you give it any thought, airplanes are astounding machines. While on flights, some people have received a lot better look at the plane's guts than they were ever meant to. On July 13, 2004, passengers on an AirTran flight from Atlanta to Orlando received an up-close glimpse at the inner workings of one of the jet engines just after takeoff. Though it may look disastrous to the uninitiated, this picture was taken from a window seat of the plane. Fan cowl doors are the outside panels of a jet engine that are only open for maintenance. They provide an aerodynamic cover for the machinery underneath and do not affect the engine's operations in any way. The locks gave out and the whole thing blew away. However, in this case, the most dangerous aspect is the likelihood of falling debris from the ripped-off fan cowl doors, which is exactly what happened on a much more recent trip. When United Airlines Flight 328 took off from Denver, Colorado bound for Hawaii on February 20, 2021, everything appeared usual. Passengers were treated to this view less than an hour into the flight when the plane flew over Broomfield, Colorado. So much for those passengers' hopes of a glamorous flight on a private plane. Extremely infrequently does a jet engine fail. Debris fell to the ground and landed in front yards and on grassy medians. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, and the jet managed to land safely because modern aircraft are built to operate with at least one malfunctioning engine. The breakdown of one of the engine's fans was traced back to the initial cause of the engine failure. Due to normal wear and use, one of the internal fan blades snapped clean in two, blocking the engine and forcing it to explode, sending flame-sheared chunks of metal crashing to the earth below. While the average age of a commercial airliner in the U.S. is only 11 years, planes typically remain in service for around 30 years before being retired to aeronautical paradise. While it's important to keep an eye out for signs of wear and tear, sometimes problems can sneak by. Let's only cross our fingers that any other aircraft out there facing a similar risky situation is taken out of service before their time. Number 2. Cockpit clash. While hiring a private aircraft would likely result in a more comfortable flight, it will not ensure your safety. A private plane, you might think, would come with the most experienced and skilled pilots money could buy. Don't be too sure. The famous rapper 2 Chainz caught this altercation between the pilots on camera while flying in his private jet. Disconcertingly, the two had to take their argument to the runway, which is not what passengers, much less famous passengers, are expected to witness. The argumentative squabbling had been sparked by a dispute over a restroom break. Because returning to the airport would have delayed takeoff, the captain had been refusing to allow his co-pilot to use the restroom beforehand. Many private jets, especially smaller planes used for shorter domestic flights of 1.5 to 2 hours, lack onboard restrooms despite their high price tags. Although the destination of 2 Chainz' flight is unknown, it seems safe to presume that the plane lacked a bathroom or that the pilots weren't permitted to use one. Number 3. Plastic plane protection. Envision this. You've endured the long wait at security, fought your way through duty-free, and settled into your allotted seat, only to turn around and see this. You may be wondering why the other passengers on this flight aren't shrieking in fear at the sight of the body bag next to them, but rest assured, this is not a real in-flight death. This person is still very much alive. He just prefers to keep his anonymity by wrapping himself in a huge plastic bag. If so, why? Haredi Jews, particularly those of Cohen heritage, shun cemeteries out of fear of tainting their holiness by contact with the dead. Cohens are forbidden by Jewish law to approach a gravesite within 6 feet, unless there is a fence of at least 3 feet high separating them. But that seems unrelated to flying. To be sure, the regulations governing cemeteries apply above and below the earth as well. They reach into the skies, making it possible for a Cohen to break religious law if his flight path takes him over a graveyard. An El Al Israel pilot complained to his rabbi about the company's routine practice of flying low over graves near Tel Aviv, Israel. Many cemeteries can be found on the city's outskirts, and in 2014, a vertical cemetery was constructed to accommodate the growing number of corpses. Haredi rabbis, concerned about the rising problem of flying over cemeteries on international travel, issued a ruling that the only way to avoid committing a sin while doing so was to cover oneself in thick plastic when the plane passed over any cemetery. In 2001, when word of this phenomenon spread, El Al Israel and other airlines began fielding requests from passengers who wanted to be plastic wrapped before boarding their flights. El Al wanted to be respectful of their passengers' religious practices, but they also had to consider the passengers' safety if they were all wrapped up in plastic and unable to utilize the oxygen masks or get out of their seats in an emergency. In addition, it can be difficult to breathe through the plastic. This necessitated a prohibition on people attempting to bring plastic body bags onto the plane in 2001. The image was likely captured in the early 2000s before airlines instituted their restriction. El Al Airlines has since implemented measures to avoid flying over cemeteries, and passengers may now expect to find only peanuts and pretzels in the snack trays of their planes rather than priests. Number 4. A strange UFO. In 2018, a passenger on a Japanese flight caught what appeared to be a fleet of UFOs hanging in the sky with smaller ones hovering around it. When the clip was released on the internet, the Defense Ministry insisted there was no military operation at the time, so whatever was flying was something else. Number 5. Turbulence in a plane. People today are less likely to freak out during turbulence since they can readily equate it to driving over a pothole. But if the turbulence is severe enough, you may say your final prayer. Everything on this American Airlines flight from Greece to Philadelphia seemed normal until they were in the middle of the air, at which point the plane began shaking violently. The first 5 minutes of the turbulence were relatively calm, but they soon escalated to the point where people lost control. The hostesses announced that all passengers should wear their seatbelts, but before that could happen, everyone lost it. Number 6. Sideways landing. It's risky to be in the area when a storm like Dennis is on, so imagine flying a plane through it. One pilot decided to put his crosswind skills to the test by landing his plane at London's Heathrow Airport in a crab formation, which meant the plane had to land on its side. One passenger on a flight noticed smoke coming from the engine and pulled out his phone to film it while his fellow passengers screamed for help. Despite the commotion, the plane continued to move for several minutes before the fire went off and smoke was seen gushing out of the engine. Number 7. Snake on a plane. Fans of action thriller films will be well versed in the 2006 release The Matrix Reloaded. Although the title suggests otherwise, the film Snakes on a Plane has many venomous reptiles on board the aircraft in question. In 2016, an Aeromexico commercial flight from Torreon to Mexico City captured video of a giant green snake slithering out of an overhead bin and into the cabin. At that point, I would have unbuckled my seatbelt and run down the aisle screaming. This wasn't a tiny snake, and the panic was evident even in the person filming the snake as he dropped the camera when the snake dropped down slightly. I'd need anything in writing before I boarded a plane again. Number 8. Engine failure scare. In 2017, 359 passengers aboard an AirAsia Airbus A330 flying from Perth to Kuala Lumpur experienced engine failure more than an hour into the journey as the plane traveled over the Western Australian coast. Passengers heard a loud bang, followed by shaking so severe they felt like they were in a washing machine. One of the 2 Rolls-Royce engines had failed, and a decision was quickly made to divert the plane to Kuala Lumpur. Another traveler reported that the pilot had asked everyone on board to pray twice before landing, and that they had all been instructed to assume the brace position. The pilot then shook their hands when they had successfully landed. Number 9. Plane panel cracks mid-flight. Wall panels on an American Airlines Boeing 757 en route from San Francisco to Dallas had to make an emergency landing in 2014 after becoming dislodged. This caused passengers to question the plane's safety, although aviation experts have repeatedly emphasized that such panels exist solely to prevent passengers from seeing the bare plane structure walls. After taking off from San Francisco International Airport, people started to worry that something was wrong. Minutes after takeoff, some passengers reported feeling the fuselage shake and hearing popping noises that seemed to come from outside the plane. It was later determined that interior panels on both sides of the plane had pulled away from the walls, leading to speculation that the aircraft had possibly blown an air duct. Despite this, the captain decided to continue flying because the cabin did not lose pressure and the oxygen mask did not deploy. The panels were mainly decorative, but the captain made the call to make an emergency landing after seeing the footage taken by flight attendants. Thankfully, all passengers and crew were unharmed. Do you have a favorite video among these? If you did, please let us know about it in the comments section down below. Now that we're getting close to the end of the video, I was wondering how you guys liked today's episode. This is not the end. In the next few days, further real content will be produced, and we will deliver the best of it to you here. That is all the information we have for today. If you want to see more videos just like this one, be sure to subscribe to our channel so that you won't miss any of them. Turn on post notifications while you're at it to ensure that you don't miss any of our upcoming uploads. We'll get together once more during the event after that.